Hey you guys, what's going on? My name is Reed the Writer. Okay, I want to get into this topic. And that is Star Wars Acolyte ran by Disney. I don't know if you've been underneath a rock, you've been hiding underneath your bed, you've been tired, but Acolyte, Disney's Star Wars Acolyte, has been canceled. And to be honest, that's no surprise to me. That is no surprise to me. The show was always going to end. And that's just me being honest. The show was always going to end. And I'm not saying that to be conniving or be nefarious in any way. I did watch the show. I went through it. The show, I'll say this, the show had good bones. In terms of the Acolyte, like just the conception of it, not a bad idea. Having twins, because there's a recurring theme of twins in Star Wars, because we know Luke, so on and so forth. That makes sense, right? So that's a thing. So having Osha and May, great concept right there. 100 years before we head into the Skywalker era, and this is really just us focusing on the High Republic of Jedi Knights in that realm of 100 years of peace. There's a lot of stories in there. There's tons. There's a game I played when I was a little girl. I told you guys about it. I played it on Xbox. Dang, I was such a little kid. It was Xbox One. And don't y'all sleep on Xbox. Xbox really is like... Xbox is that girl that people neglect. But they come back around and be like, oh, you know what? Me and her did have a good time. That's Xbox. And Xbox One, they had a game and it was called Star Wars The Old Republic. And it was a game. And the game was so awesome, just going through the different universes, being a Jedi Knight, rescuing people, solving mysteries, solving crimes, just being overall just a Jedi. And there's so many stories in there. So conceptually, with Star Wars Acolyte, it could have been a really amazing story. Aside from us focusing on the dark side, just alone with the villains there, like if we focused on even like the Mandalorian lore, there's just so many stories there. With this, I will say this, I give them credit for creativity, because I'm not going to bash the show like that, because like I said, I did watch it. It wasn't the greatest show I've ever watched in my entire life, especially if we're comparing it to other Star Wars shows in the franchise, but for creativity, they get points 100% there. I've never seen a Wookiee with a lightsaber. I've heard about it, but I've never seen that on screen. And watching a full-blown big Wookiee pick up a man and throw him against a wall, kick a wall, a metal wall, and punch a hole in it, his use of the Force, that was so freaking cool just to see. So just, that was amazing. The little cantina scene was really cool. So there's some real nice stuff in there. Plus we got to see our first ever introduction to Darth Plagueis, which is Darth Sidious's master. So seeing him, that was cool. Even though the timeline was off, I will say that the timeline for Darth Plagueis is wrong if we're comparing it in the timeline here with the Acolyte. But still, it was really nice seeing that. But all in all, the show being canceled, there was too much vitriol, rage, and hate in the fandom. Come on now, we can't even hide from that. How many posts, how many fans, how many people just hate Disney, and they hate what Star Wars is doing with Disney. On top of that, just beyond the vitriol hate, there was so much disgust for Leslye Headland. So her just being in a controlling position, and steering this brand into this new direction. Some of the things she did say online were controversial, I will say that, especially with her referring to some of the, I think it was an interviewer, they were calling, I think it was R2-D2 lesbian, which I was like,
This is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Wars, I think, by a considerable. Are you excited about that? Are you bracing yourself?
Star Wars.
It's pretty gay, let's be honest. How do you feel?
Am I gay?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, no, I know you are gay, but I'm asking, are you excited about putting this, this is going to be a talking point.
Is it going to be a talking point?
I'm sure so.
Because nerds are gay.
Well, some nerds are very not gay and are very threatened by gay
Well, that's
stuff.
true. But in my world, nerds are gay.
Okay. Was this the fun element of...
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. And yet people have told me that it's the gayest Star Wars, and I frankly
You're offended?
into it. No.
I think that Star Wars is so gay already.
Okay.
We'd be like, look how gay this is, and then send each other a reference photo.
And are you telling me, with a straight face, that C-3PO is straight?
They're a couple. That's what I think. But this is more outward.
I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting.
I don't, yo, whoa, I don't know. That threw me for a loop. I don't know. That was something else. But yeah, for that, then a lot of her intake on how she felt about George Lucas and wanting to make Star Wars her own rather than embracing the franchise that it is, like the foundation work that's already there. Instead of ripping it apart, you could just build on top of it, but she took a different perspective, a different run with it. And I think with all of that together, then on top of that, you have Amandla Stenberg, which we're going to get into that into this video. This video is going to be a little bit long because I want to touch on every point. But then you also have Amandla Stenberg, who I will say that she was being bullied online, which I do not respect. People who do death threats, people who are very racist online, attacked her, all that stuff, to me, there's something wrong with you. I understand Star Wars is very precious to you, but for you to attack a human being, an actor, for just taking on a role, that I can't condone. There's something wrong with you. Your parasocial relationships that you're having, you're getting too deep with it. And for you to go online and to spout so much disgust for another human being, and this person literally didn't do anything to you besides just take on a role. There's something wrong with you. And I don't know. I believe in karma, and I'm an advocate for that. I don't believe that whatever you put on the internet just disappears and you can just live your life. No, I believe that everything you say on this planet is attended, it's accounted for, and it's written somewhere. So you don't want to be on the receiving end where, say if it's like your time in life and someone goes back to remember this horrible thing that you said, or even nowadays with social media, people are so good at finding out who you are. You don't want to be found out saying something so horrible. But that says a lot about you and your character too. So I don't support that anyway. But yeah, all the attacks she was getting. But she also did do a song called Discourse, which did flag her agitators, which also did not help her situation at all. It was flaming, flaming the fire, just making it bigger. That also didn't help. But there were too many things going against this show for it to be successful. Then we also have to get into the comparison between Anakin Skywalker and Ashoka and May, all three of them being quote unquote chosen in some form, being birthed from the Force. Whereas you have Anakin, who was sporadically, he's a miracle who's born from the Force. And I didn't even realize that until I actually went back and I did research. Because when I'm not going to say the first Star Wars, but when the more modern, I would say like the early 2000s Star Wars came out, I was a little kid, I was a baby, so I wasn't able to pay attention to that stuff. But I did go back and I rewatched the Star Wars, all of the episodes. And just seeing that scene made me just go, wow, that's how important Anakin was. That's how special he was. He truly was the balance. He was the chosen one. In a lot of realm, he was the Jesus character of his story of, betrayal and redemption. And that's what he provided. But then you have Ocean May also being born of the Force, but I wouldn't say sinister, but more of a maybe selfish form. just impregnating another witch. So there's different layers there, but that was going to set off fans already. So yeah, the show was always going to end. I just knew it was. And I think that says a lot about the direction that Disney has for its franchise, for its brand. But also it says a lot about the fans. Like, it's appeasing Star Wars fans. You would think it would be not as complicated, but it is. It's a religion for a lot of people. You can't just hop on Beyonce's internet and just pump out a Star Wars trilogy or a Star Wars show or a Star Wars movie. You have to have the Star Wars encyclopedia. You have to be well versed in the lore, in the Force, in the dark side, and understanding what was George Lucas going through in the process of the filmmaking, and there's so much to it. So by the time you even get to this part where you want to even do a show or a movie, you have to know what you're doing. And at any stop, the audience, the fans feel like you're doing something that they love, they keep so near and dear to their heart, a disservice, they will come for you. And this also reminds me a lot of when, let me look up I was playing Anakin back in the day, like the early 2000s, like late 90s, early 2000s. He received so much hate for his portrayal of Anakin from the fans. And he believed for 20 years that he was the worst thing that came along to Star Wars, until recently it changed. And that's what I'm saying. It says so much about the fans for Star Wars. If you in any form or fashion make them upset or mad, or they feel like your portrayal of the character isn't up to par, they're going to come for you. So that's what I'm saying. I feel so bad for Hayden that, you know, he went through that. But with Amandla, it's the same type thing. And I will say this for her as well. She just took on a role. She did a lot with that song, that Discourse song. She did more than I would have. Me personally, I would have just taken the role and I would have been quiet on the internet until my next role and just moved on. But yeah, she did the Discourse. She went on interviews. She has her own philosophy when it comes to her activism. So she did a little more than I would have done. But at the end of the day, she still just took on a role. And, like, I was reading some of the messages, like, some of the racist stuff that people were calling her, and, like, I don't know what's wrong with you guys. But all in all, the show was destined for failure. The show was not going to get off the ground. I found this article, I just want to read a little bit about the show and the cancellation. Then I do have a video for you guys to show you what Amandla Stenberg's thoughts were about the cancellation. And, you know, every time a show gets canceled, people don't think about this as well. When a show gets canceled, all the actors, the on-screen, the set, the designers, you name it, anyone who's there for CGI, for effects, stage presence, security, the fire department, because a lot of you guys don't know there's the fire department that is on set for a lot of like bigger productions when there's animatronics or there's any pyrotechnics, which, you know, there's some stuff here. All those people, including writers as well, everyone lost their job. I'm not saying we should feel bad for these people because, yes, the writing wasn't that strong. And that's the truth. The show was okay, but the writing wasn't good. It wasn't the greatest thing. But the show had great bones. But all those people have lost their jobs. They're out of work for whatever. Even if this was going to become a season 2, they've lost their job. So that's the sad part. The people who had nothing to do with the writing or anything like that, people were just taking on a job. They lost their job. So that's all I'm saying. I feel bad about that, on that perspective. But yeah, let's get into this article. Disney officially announced that there will be no season 2 of Star Wars: The Acolyte. This came as a shock to many fans of the show. And there was a divide, and that's something that I've noticed. With this property, it was a weird mixed bag. And I don't know if the bag was bots, if these were paid for accounts, but the bag was a mix of people who never watched the show and they just hated it online. Those who did watch the show and hated it and went online to comment about that. Then there are people who liked the show, went on a comment. Then there's also people, it's not even human beings, but AI or artificial accounts, non-existent accounts who've been commenting as well. And I've noticed that as well. So it's a four big bag of people, fans, non-fans, people who are semi-interested, not interested, who all had something to say about the Acolyte. But let's get into it. The Acolyte's cancellation comes down to one simple truth. It costs too much. Yeah. Disney spent $200 million on this show, which is absurd. How this show even equated to $200 million, I can't wrap my head around it. But yeah, so it costs $200 million to make. So that basically means that each episode costs $630,000 for every minute of screen time. How that even happened, like I said, there's something going on in there. And I would have to be within Disney and to be over the finances to even understand where that money is exactly going. Because no offense to the Acolyte, and this is not me bashing on Disney, because I actually do have a heart for Disney. I do love Renaissance Disney. That was my childhood. I'm a 2000s kid. I grew up during the 2000s. That was my childhood. But when I look at the show Acolyte, and this is just all honesty, and this is not me being contentious or anything, but when I look at Acolyte, I don't see exactly where all the money went. Like, for some of it, sure. For the costumes, I can kind of understand. For the stage, for the production, you're paying out the actors. Okay, sure. You're paying for writers, you're paying for runners, you're paying for everyone to be on the set. You're paying for marketing, and that's a different budget that's probably not included here, but you're paying for all this. But for this show to be equated to that amount, even with the CGI for the aliens, I don't know. It just $630,000 for every minute of screen time. And for you to have spent that much money for this show, wouldn't the show have been better or looked different? I mean, for $200 million, like, damn, I'm expecting to get award-winning writing. I'm expecting for this to be like the next upcoming House of Dragons. At this part, Game of Thrones. This better have the best CGI, the best actors, which I said they have a really good solid cast there. But just what? For it to be that much? There better be gold and diamonds somewhere on the set, something. So that's what I'm saying. I would have to do research on it, but yeah, I don't know where all the money went. Maybe the CGI to make Chewbacca, not Chewbacca, but the Wookiee, but look like a guy was wearing a costume for some part of it. I don't know. Maybe it was the CGI for the lightsaber, but I don't think that was it either. That's what I'm saying, is there's something going on with Disney and how they're allocating their money. I don't know if they're hiding money. I don't know if it's going to come out in the back end. I don't know if someone needs to do an audit to see where money's actually being dispersed. But something's just not adding up. And it was bothering me. That's why I wanted to talk about it. It was bothering me for a minute. But maybe Disney has a handle on it. I'm not sure. But let's keep going. The first two episodes of The Acolyte was wildly successful, garnering 4.8 million views the first day of Disney+. I do believe a lot of those views were strictly just hate views. I don't believe that many people were, at 4.8 million, were watching it to be positive, watching it for entertainment. I do believe maybe like 1 million of those people were waiting to do a hate video on it or to do a reaction video. And I said it because I don't believe that they were actually intending to watch the show long term to be a fan or out of excitement. And that makes the biggest series premiere of Disney this year. However, the viewership plummeted after episode 2. That's why I said that. And the show dropped off the charts entirely. And as I said, I think what a lot of people did is they watched the show. They already made up in their mind that they're going to hate it even before watching it. So they just wanted to watch it just to scratch an itch. They watched the show. Then once the show was into episode 1 or 2 and they've made their assumptions, or even episode 3 or 4, once they got to that part, they just scrapped it and they just said automatically, this is the worst thing ever. This is bad. We hate this, especially once we found out Osha and Bay were conceived through the Force, the power of 1, the power of 2. That was kind of weird too. The power of 1, the power of 2. That was weird. I'm not gonna cap. But yeah, once they got to that, it just kept declining. And I believe that part pissed off too many people and they just said forget it. The series finale is believed to have the lowest viewership of any live action. Yeah. And to put the cherry on top. Yeah. Yep. That's what happened. That is exactly what happened. So, due to the show's failure, it'll probably be a long time before we see any High Republic era shows. Which is a shame because the High Republic is one of the most interesting times in Star Wars canon. Chances are we probably will not see a Darth Plagueis in live action again after his teaser at the end of Acolyte Season 1. And I told you guys before, the timeline for Plagueis was off, so he shouldn't have been there anyway, but I liked the introduction. No, actually, I'm not gonna cap. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Darth Plagueis introduction. I liked that he was there, but him being in a cave, it didn't seem fitting. Because I did research on Darth Plagueis, and I found out he was a genius. He was very opulent. He had tons of money, and he was very wealthy. And he was really into that. So I couldn't imagine him being in a cave from a far away distance, just watching the Acolyte unfold. I feel like for his personality, it would remind me almost of Count Dooku. I would see him almost be involved in the planet's affairs or awareness. It's just, I don't know. It makes me think a lot. But like I said, the show had bones. I'm not sure where the bones landed. I don't know if they're chicken bones. But if I could have, because I'm a writer, by the way, if I could have done anything different with this show, I probably would have played around with the idea of keeping it in the High Republic era, because that's such a cool era. Keeping it within that era, and instead of doing the Acolyte, and I know that Kathleen Kennedy had such a big will and a big push for it, because that was something that she wanted to do. Then she hired on Leslye Headland, and it went from there, and they did their thing. But I probably would have either done something similar to the video game, The Old Republic, and just, if they wanted to be in a position where they wanted to have brand new characters, brand new Jedi, and explore the realm, they could have just did that and copied the video game. And just had people, Jedi, explore the universe and solve crimes, solve mysteries, help people. That alone would have been a great show. And it's something that could have just continuously been ongoing. Because, there could have been no ending for it. Especially if we have like a 100-year gap of peace for the Jedi. So that could have been something there. Also, because they threw in Darth Plagueis, I would have, and I've said this, I've said this so many freaking times. I believe that with the society we have now, there's such a huge interest in villains. Like, think about this, the Joker movie that's coming out. There's so many people who love the Joker. right? Like, there's so many people who love that. Even if you go to, what's a video game? The God of War. Kronos, that guy's a villain. Kratos, I mean. But yeah, he's such a villain. You know, he's on his revenge tour. He's doing that. A villain. Granted, he does have a redemption arc, sure, once he gets to Ragnarok and he has his son, but there's so much high interest in that. So it's very telling for me that people want to see the bad guy's story. Even right now with Disney doing the Mufasa movie that's coming out, there's this little bit of a twist to it with Scar's villain story being in a mixture with Mufasa's. And there's a lot of garnered sympathy for Scar now that we know the truth, of Scar's heritage and his story. With all that being said, why not just do a Star Wars dark side show? I don't know why that's never just been done. I know there's a book, I know there's Thrawn, which we get to focus more on Thrawn's tactile and his strategy, him being a strategist on the side of war. So there's a book on that. But why not just have a show for it? Especially if we're going to introduce Darth Plagueis. Wouldn't that have been awesome if we did a show with Darth Plagueis finding his apprentice, which is Darth Sidious? That right there would have been everything. There's so much story right in there. But like I said, they had two options. They could have either just went the High Republic route, drop the Acolyte, just forget it, pick up old lore, pick up old stories. There's tons of comics, there's tons of books out of the High Republic era, the Jedi Knights, pick something there, boom. Or if we're going to play around with Darth Plagueis, since they like to throw that in, they threw that in at the very end, just do his story with his him finding Dark Cities, him training him. That would have been awesome. But yeah, sadly, I don't work for Disney. If I did, I'm telling you, I would be in there and probably piss off a lot of people, but I would just say what's needed to say. Unless Disney is in a position where they don't care about making money and they're more interested in just doing side adventures with their ideas that are going to piss off a fan base that's already red hot. The Star Wars fan base right now, they are pissed. I believe there's very little they can do to make that fan base happy, unless they were to. This might sound outrageous, but unless they were to bring back George Lucas at this point to write a script or to be on the side of the filming and to be a director, I don't really know what they're going to do with per se. Or unless they hire a director that is a Star Wars fan, a huge fan of the franchise, who is main focus is primarily story and sticking to the lore like a religion. They're so deep with it that the fans can't help but to love it. That's the only way I can see Star Wars making just anything and it just not failing. But what's coming up is there's the Skeleton Crew that's coming up. There's Ahsoka Season 2, which I like Ahsoka. I like Ahsoka in Clone Wars. And there's Andor Season 2, which Andor, I watched the first episode and it was great. The show looks amazing, so I do need to go back. Maybe I'll do a review on it here just to tell you guys my thoughts about Andor, but Andor got the juice. Whatever's going on at Andor, they should have just brought over those people to make Acolyte. I would say just fire everyone who's involved with Acolyte and just bring in those people for everything. Or better yet, bring in all the people who've ever been a part of the TV shows. Like, I'm talking about Clone Wars, the animated series that came out in the early 2000s of the Star Wars. Just bring in those people. I know they're alive, just bring in those people. Okay, so let's get into Amandla Stenberg and her thoughts on the show canceling. because I know it's a whole thing. Because, yeah, she hopped on Beyonce's internet to speak her truth about how she felt about the show being canceled. So, yeah, we're going to watch it right now. I'm going to put it on the screen right here. Okay, let's go. Let's do this.
Our Star Wars show has been canceled. I'm going to be transparent and say that it's not a huge shock for me. Of course, I live in the bubble of my own reality, but for those who aren't aware, there has been a rampage of vitriol that we have faced since the show was even announced, when it was still just a concept and when no one had even seen it. And that's when we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards us. And, you know, this really affected me when I first got the job, because it's just not something, even though I anticipated it happening, it's not something you can fully understand what it feels like until it's happening to you. On that topic, I just have to say it has been an incredible honor and dream for me to be in this universe. Of course, I'm very sad about the show being canceled, despite and in the face of all of the vitriol that we received and the kind of the targeted attack, I would say, we received by the alt-right. Thank you for being so loving and supportive and excited and nerdy and awesome, and I'll continue to process this for a long time, but maybe the last thing I want to say on the subject.
Well, I have my thoughts about that. I hate when people refer to those who disagree with them or have a different philosophy as right, and right just meaning republic. I don't think that's the case at all for this. Because, yeah, I don't believe that it was just purely the right who were hating on her. I believe it was everybody. I believe it was unanimously everybody who was hating on her. I believe there was a big margin on the left and on the right. I believe it were just Star Wars fans. And yeah, her kind of just saying that, because I know what she's going into. I listened to that song Discourse, and it was really about like white people tears and feeling comfortability having white people cry, that making her feel happy. That was strange to me too. That's weird. Especially with, I just found out too that she's half white, half black. So when do you want the other half of you to cry? I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand that. But yeah, I don't believe it's a white thing or a black thing or all right thing or a leftist thing. I think it's just a matter of fans. I think the fans, for the most part, there are people who did like the show. I will say that again. But for the most part, most Star Wars fans did not like the show. Most observers did not like the show. But in terms of the hate she received, in the beginning, I do believe it was out of pocket. But she didn't help her situation either by egging them on and doing that Discourse song and some of her interviews too as well. But you know what I mean? Those white people tears, and wanting that's a little bit different for me. That's a little bit different. But yeah, in terms of just bullying her and hating her online, I'll never agree with that. I don't care if someone says the worst thing about you on the planet. Just let it be. Just be the bigger person. Because it's not worth it stooping down that low to get on someone's level. And you're going to end up regretting it. I promise you. You might think, oh, I got my lick into you. No, you did not. That person puts you out of your character. And as mad as you get, it's just, you don't want it. Always remember, just be graceful. Be kind. Be direct. Be firm with what you got to say. But if you're not getting what you need, just leave at the end of the day. And I'm going to say this as well. I hold Disney accountable as well for the protection of their actors and actresses. And I don't mean to go back to The Little Mermaid, because I did a couple videos on that too. But the amount of hate the actors, especially Halle Bailey, received was astronomical. And I know Disney's on the fence of just putting out their product, selling their product, making their money, making their show, making their movie. That's one of their bigger focuses. And sure, I'm pretty sure there's people underneath Disney who, you know, were there for Halle while she was going through it. But it didn't seem like they put up a lot of protection for these actors and actresses, especially putting them in positions where there was going to be hate. It's like you're throwing people in the middle of the lake of fire and not offering them any water, not offering them any protection, just throwing them out, seeing what happens, watching them burn, and expecting the best out of it. And if it doesn't work, we cancel it. And that's what I'm saying. For this, I just feel like they just threw her out here. And like I said, she didn't make her situation even better, though, with that song and a lot of the discourse she had online. That didn't help her situation as well. But yeah, I don't know if Disney could have provided something or some guidance or just, you know, some coverage. But like I said, you guys, if people are going to hate you, just ignore them and don't clap back. It's not worth it. The clap back is where people will get you. You start talking back, you get people more like ammunition. Trust me, it's not worth it. If you have to clear the air and speak your truth, for sure, but you're clapping back, I've seen it time and time again. You don't win. Then you end up in the future looking back like 10 years, because she's young. I'm young too, but you're going to look back 10 years from this point in her life. She'd be like 40, and you're going to be like, dang, was that like the best way I could have handled that? Or should I have even said anything? Or now, you know, these people have content to use on you from that song and from the things that she said. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. Just move on. Make the product. Move on. Get the role. Don't say anything. Just move on. But yeah. So I wish her the best. I have nothing against her. Yeah, she was in the Hunger Games. She played Rue. She was also in Everything Is Everything. What is it? Everything? I don't know. I'll just put it on the screen. That was my movie back in the day. That was my movie. Yeah, I remember that. That was a great movie. Yeah, so her acting she's a great actress. But the white people tears, you gotta stop saying that. I don't understand that. But yeah, I wish her the best. Stay away from Star Wars until Star Wars figures out what they're doing. Lucasfilms. And Kathleen Kennedy, they figure out what they're doing over there with their direction. But yeah, if I was an actress, I wouldn't touch any of their products. I would just wait. Maybe 10 years, but I would not hop on. I would just pause for a second. But yeah, tell me your thoughts down below. What do you think about the Acolyte being canceled? Were you a fan of the show? Were you one of the rare few people who actually thought the show was good? How do you feel about the show being canceled? What are your thoughts on Amandla Stenberg and the show ending? And what do you think about the show costing as much as it did? $200 million for what, 8 episodes? There has to be some type of laundering. Something's going on. Something's not adding up. I don't know what it is, but something, I don't know. I have to look at the books. Something is off. But yeah, tell me your thoughts down below. And thank you so much for liking, sharing, subscribing, and keeping up with my channel. I appreciate all you guys who are just here to have me and watch me talk and rant and do my thing and just chill out with you guys. Alright, I'll see you guys for the next video.